We're joined by Durham head coach Ryan Campbell, who's looking well wrapped up. He wouldn't have been dressed like that if you'd been in Abu Dhabi, which is where you were supposed to have been. Harmy was just telling me off air that you always feel like you're at least 2 weeks behind the rest of the country, early season. So, yeah, that's got to hurt. That missing the trip to Abu Dhabi.
Yeah, frustrating, that's for sure. You build up your whole preseason, you plan everything, basically building to a point where the bowlers' overs, for instance, are exactly where you want them to be as you're about to go outside. And but end of the day, it is totally out of our hands. Our old mate Trumpy decided to do something a bit different. Look, at the end of the day, we need to, find a different way. There's no point just sitting here and moping and groaning. We're pretty good at problem solving up here, and myself and Marcus North and Vic, the ground manager, and we've all put our heads together trying to come up with tactics to try and get guys outdoors, and we'll hopefully we'll be okay.
What you got planned then, Campbell? Because I mean, you talk about having plans in place, and Vic normally has the ground in such a a pristine condition. But even putting a marquee up, you wouldn't have the pitches in a position for you to use at this moment in time. So, have you got anything in plan? Are you going to try and use somebody else's marquee? Are you going to try and send the bowlers away somewhere?
Well, that's the thing. Marcus is working through an option for us to send just our bowling staff over to Spain. But again, when you do that, Desert Springs, they're not ready. They're not ready for having so many counties suddenly giving him a call and saying, "Oh, we need to come. We need to come." So, the wickets, from all reports, are in pretty bad shape. So to get the guys outdoors and bowling is great. But then we have to weigh up, well, they're not even going to bowl to batters. Is it worth sending him and paying all that cash? But if we can get something out the back here, I know that the nursery ground, Mark, who looks after the nursery ground, is working, hours and weekends to try and get something for us, because I think at this stage, we just got to get bowlers running on grass and bowling on turf. If there's no batter, that's fine. The batters will, catch up when we can. But at this stage, we're trying to do either of those options. Obviously we got games planned against, we got Sussex in a 2-day game, and we're trying to have good conversations with them to maybe extend that now that neither of the teams are going away. And then obviously we have Durham Uni as well. So, to throw other bits into the mix, we've got 4 kids in Australia who can't quite get back at the minute. And 3 of them are 3 of them are fast bowlers. So, we're working through all different ways to try and get our squad. We got Colin Ackerman, who was at the World Cup. He's in South Africa, trying to get back here as well. So, yeah, there's a bit going on.
To be fair, Campbell, if I was in Australia, if I was in South Africa, the thought of going to Abu Dhabi would have got me back very, very quickly. The thought of bowling on the nursery ground in March at Durham, not quite as nice a proposition, my friend.
Ryan, a couple of months ago, we spoke to Tim Bostock about the financial ramifications of being in Division 2, and he said actually not significant as long as it's only 1 year. He said, he basically said, we've got all our best players on contract and that kind of thing, but we don't want to be spending a couple of years in in Division 2. But when you look at Division 2, you half wonder whether it might be as hard to win that as it is to win Division 1. I mean, do you feel the pressure of an immediate return?
Oh, mate, there's good cricket teams everywhere in county cricket, and that's the beauty of the county game. They're a tough opposition. I've been watching, obviously, Derbyshire have been rebuilding their list. You got Lancashire throwing in guys. You got Worcester who have come down, who really, although they got, relegated with us, they had a really good season at home, and their bowlers are outstanding. So, mate, there's so many good teams. Northants, that Buff Lima's not just sitting on his hands, thinking what's going on. And, every team is going to be tough. And we do not think we're just going to, waltz the league and go straight back up. we're not going to hide behind what happened last year. I'm not that sort of guy to go, oh, you know what, we'll bounce back and hit the old coach's playbook. You know, we have to earn every little thing. We got to get back to playing our very best cricket. I think we've got an awfully talented squad and list, but the facts are we didn't play to our optimum last year. And, you know, you can say, yes, we got relegated only by 1 point, but doesn't matter. 1 point or 100 points, you still get relegated. So, you know, we've gone back to basics. We've worked really hard this off season. We've tried to break a couple of them along the way, just, you know, in the toughness of it all. And I think we're in a really good position, to be honest. We're going to come back and we're going to play our brand of cricket. We're going to be, you know, the Durham that people have got used to.
Campbell, we had Anthony McGrath on last week. You talked there about the sort of the teams around you in Division 2. Manus talked about how difficult it is. You know, our first and second divisions are strong. I mean, English cricket is in a decent spot when it comes to the talent pool. We've seen the debacle of what happened in the winter. Is it important now that England players start playing? If there's a window now for them to play, they don't play a test match till June. I think Carter's going to the IPL, but you know, would you expect Stokes and one or two others around the country from an England player's point of view to play some county cricket?
Yeah, 100%. You know, you know, since I've moved here, I always knew that the Ashes is everything. If you're in Australia and you lose the Ashes, the Sheffield Shield is crap. The Kookaburra Ball's crap. Everything's crap. We got to change everything. And it's exactly the same when you're here. And, you know, the one thing I will say is when I hear people talk about the county game is, well, you can't really blame the county game for this one because let's be honest, they don't really look at the county game very often. But that's their prerogative and that's fine. And, you know, we know that they respect this game, but I now see that there is a massive opportunity for blokes to get back. And you know what, if you're a batter, hundreds are your currency. You know what? And there's a few, let's say, you know, Pope, Crawley, these sort of guys, even Ben Stokes, our bloke, you know, he was probably disappointed with his Ashes tour, you know, so they all have to get back to work. And the only way you get better is playing games. I don't care what anyone says, you know, and, you know, that's what they have to do. And that means it strengthens the competition. And if the competition is tough, that hardens the next people to go forward. And I'm really excited about that period up till June to see which ones do play and which ones don't. And, you know, that you got to obviously have one eye on the schedules and loads and all that sort of stuff. But, you know, I would expect that Ben will play for us in those first 6 weeks. I know that, you know, he's obviously what happened, the accident with his eye, he's got to go through the right tests and stuff and get released from that. But, you know, he's very keen and very ready to go to play good cricket for himself and, you know, for Durham, and then obviously to lead this England team again.
Yeah, you sound as enthusiastic as ever, Campbell. You signed an extension a couple of years. You've got Kemar Roach. You've always had David Bedingham. How important was the Kemar Roach signing? Because from a bowler's point of view, the start of the season, if he can bowl with two jumpers on coming from Barbados, I mean, what a signing that is for wickets which do a little bit.
Yeah, look, we thought it was really, really important that we've still got, if you take Ben Rain out of our attack, and you know Matthew Potts has obviously been dipping his toe in the England world and you know back with us, we've got a very young bowling attack, and we need some experienced heads to get us through. You know, last year, and again, I'm sorry if I keep banging on about it, but I don't hide behind excuses, but we had so many injuries to the point where one game I had to borrow 3 players from other clubs. Just, you know, I've been in the game for 35 years and I've never actually met 3 blokes the night before a game, you know, to play a first class game of cricket. So that was new for me, but that's how desperate we were. And, you know, I guess the carry on from that was all our youngsters were thrown in too early because they were carrying injuries and they were having to brought back. And then your rotations are out of sync. And by the end of it, we just had nothing left. And so to get a guy like of Kemar Roach's standing, and, you know, he's played this game before here in England, I think it's going to be really, really exciting. You know, we throw into the mix, you know, Casey Aldridge, who I believe, and again, without pumping the kid up too much, he could be anything. How we've got our hands on him is just amazing, and we're bloody happy we got him, let me tell you. But this kid bowls fast, can bat in the top six, and I will say behind Jacob Bethel is probably the second best fielder in the country. So to get a kid like that, who's what, 6'6" or something as well, you know, we're excited to see what he's going to bring to the table. So, you know, it's going to give us a few more options than what we've had in the past. And, you know, that's what I'm excited to see, to get our fast bowling group up and running and, you know, see where it can go.
Talking of senior bowlers, Campbell, there were a couple of times last season when Mark Wood, said how keen he was to play a couple of games for Durham, and I'm not setting a trap for you, I
Yeah.
promise. But he wasn't, you know, he for some reason he wasn't allowed to, or you know, is it frustrating centrally contracted players when they are sort of? I mean, we talk about overplayed; they can be over-rested. It seems sometimes, and Woody is, you know, he's desperate to play for Durham.
Yeah, there's obviously massive amounts of frustration that, you know, how you handle your fast bowled, and everyone's different. Let's get that straight out. You know, Mark Wood is a unique character who bowls 150 kilometres an hour, and they don't fall off trees very often. So England are obviously very careful with him. And look, do I agree that he went to Australia without playing a game? He bowled in one warm-up match, and then he's expected to play a test. I think that's really setting yourself up for failure. I know he's done it before, so that's the problem. He's done it before, and they think that works. But you know, that can be frustrating. But again, all we can do is have those conversations. You know, at the minute, I'm not sure where Woody is. So, you know, I know that he's, you know, he's still having knee troubles, and, you know, our fingers are crossed for him that hopefully everything's going to go well. And, you know, if he does come back, you know, I would expect him to be, you know, first in our lineup to, you know, to try and get through some cricket, which would be really, really exciting for everyone here.
And Campbell, just finally from me, I mean, wherever you go, whether, you know, the lads just sort of muck in all in together and you stay in the cold Chesley Street and then eventually get to Sussex. I mean, how much planning and what goals have you set for them first sort of 6 or 7 games that come before the first test match or the first block? Because there have to be the sort of, not just the main focus, but that's how you're going to get promoted from them 6 games, 7 games.
Yeah. Mate, the history of second division cricket shows that it's a bloody tough competition to get out of. And the teams that have done it, like ourselves and Sussex, and then, you know, Leicester last year, you have to blow teams away early. You have to get a lead and you have to just go for it. And, you know, that's what we're going to do. Those first 6 games, you know, we are going to bring what we believe is our A game, and we're going to be ruthless. And the one thing that I will say about our game last year, we had a number of opportunities where we were in a dominating position and let the opposition off the canvas. And we just cannot afford to do that. And hopefully, you know, guys have learned. They're going to spot those crucial moments and go, you know what? No, not now. This is me and you. We're going to stick together. We're going to do this. We're going to push on, push on, push on. So if we can do that, and if we play our best cricket, I have no doubt we can win a lot of games of cricket. But especially early on. And like I say, you know, you're getting the Ben Stokes in the team, with Kumar Roach, with Potts, with Rain, with Aldrich. You know, we got to try and fit a spinner in there. Then we got to fit in all our batters. You know, they all want to play, but there's going to be a real battle on. You know, Clark, Rhodes, Ackerman, all battling it out with Robinson, and buddy McKinney wants to open the batting, but Emilio Gay wants to open the batting, and you got Alex Lees as well. So there's plenty fighting for spots. So it's not just, you know, everyone plays as a team. But let's be honest, we play an individual game inside of a team. So everyone's looking out for, you know, trying to put their best foot forward. So, you know, we're going to concentrate on us winning games of cricket, nothing else, no England selection, no nothing, no anything. And that's what we're going to do. And if we do that well, and again, now I am sounding like a coach, we're going to be bloody hard to beat. And we're going to come all guns blazing.
And finally, how's your own health, Cambo? How's the ticker? All right, all good?
Mate, the cold's killing me, but yeah, the ticker's going really well, to be honest. Look, I'm actually allowed to exercise and do all sorts now. I just went on my first skiing trip, as if I'm not cold enough. My wife decided to take me skiing, which was incredible because, you know, I know it sounds silly, but I'm a Perth boy, mate. I was brought up on the beaches. There's no mountains. There's no nothing. And suddenly I'm sitting there looking at 3 different countries in one spot in Switzerland. It was just magnificent. So, yeah, I'm rejuvenated, ready to go after a long preseason. But, yeah, the Abu Dhabi sun would have been nice, but we'll have to do with the Chesterley Street sun.
It always reminds me when the Australians talk about that. And David Boone, 38 years old, seen snow on the first day of a championship match of the season against Worcester. And he was like, what on earth is this? I'm 38 years old and I have never seen snow before in my life. So It was bad enough seeing the snow. He couldn't drive in it either. So, I mean, it will be cold, but it's another unique thing that keeps the Northeast different.
And that's why we love the Southerners coming up here, mate. So they get nice and frosty, and Kent will be getting a nice. The heaters won't be going on in the bloody away change rooms. Let me tell you that for free. We'll make it not as cold and frosty as we can for them.